So in all my years of shooting, the wide angle lens has by far been my favorite lens. It is the lens that I use more than anything else. I own the Canon 16-35 2.8 version 2. I also own a Laowa 12mm lens, and that's because I really love wide angle lenses. But now that I'm shooting on Sony, I'm having to find that perfect wide angle lens for Sony, which brings me to the Sony GMaster 16-35 2.8 lens. And in this video, we're going to talk about what are my thoughts on this lens and is it worth the hefty price tag. What's good, creative fam? Brandon Washington here. And first of all, if you're brand new to the channel, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button because this channel is all about filmmaking gear, tips, and tutorials. But in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Sony 16-35 2.8 GMaster. Now, as I mentioned before, wide angle lenses, especially wide angle zoom lenses, are very important to everything that I shoot. In my workflow, it pretty much comes out of my bag almost on every single occasion. The 16-35 focal range is perfect for establishing shots, gimbal work, vlogging, real estate, photography, or video, and lots of other applications. And so this is why this is a lens that I use pretty much on the regular. Now, another thing that I really needed was to be at a low aperture of 2.8, which this GMaster does. This GMaster also comes with a lot of other unique features that I wasn't really used to. For example, this GMaster also has a programmable button on the side that you can go into your Sony menu settings and actually set this thing up to be able to use as another function button, which I think was really cool. Another thing that this GMaster also offers you is a toggle for being able to manually or autofocus this lens. And not to mention the fact that this lens is built like a tank. It is legitimately a big piece of glass. Now, this is one thing that I did need to mention about this lens. Unlike on my Canon 16-35, when you actually are like zooming this thing from 16 to 35 or vice versa, the actual barrel of the lens does shift. It does move out. So at 16, it is actually out at its longest point, and at 35 is more zoomed, or it's more kind of shrunk in. Well, the problem with this is if you are going to be using this on a gimbal, you will start to run into some issues of rebalancing, and depending on how powerful your gimbal is, I mean, like I said already, this is a very big lens. It may be already struggling to balance this thing, so you're definitely going to want to go with a stronger gimbal and something that can maybe support if you do have to kind of zoom this lens in or out. Now, as you guys know with the Sony, that this camera does not have a flip out screen, so that's another big reason why I like the 16-35. If I'm ever in like a vlogging situation, I want to be able to take this lens out and be able to know that I'm not only going to be in frame, but that the autofocus is going to work really well and that's going to be able to do a great job. So I decided, what the heck, let's take this lens out and actually go do a little vlogging test with it. So actually, you know what? Let's do that right now. But first, I need to make a quick little change. All right, there we go. Much better. It's kind of cold outside, so got to be prepared. All right, so now we are looking at the 16-35 2.8 GMaster lens on the Sony A7iii in a vlogging setup. So currently I have this attached to my Joby GorillaPod, and I have a Rode mic on top, shooting in 4K, 24 frames per second, no monitor, which means I do have face tracking turned on. Now, I am perfectly aware that this hat does not make it easy for the face tracking, but it is freezing out here in Houston, Texas. For those of you who live in Houston, you know exactly where I'm at. I'm at the graffiti wall because I love this spot and I like coming out here and shooting. But this was a great test for the 16-35, but I like it in this vlogging type of a setup because this lens, it's not super heavy. Whoa, that stair is like totally broken. But yeah, this, I mean, it's not like totally heavy, but it's a whole lot lighter than my 1DX Mark II. And for a lot of you guys who know, I did vlog with that a little bit, and I didn't have a flip out screen on that either. So this is a great little test for me because I'm not used to having a flip out screen. And honestly, I don't really need it that much. All right, now quickly, how is my focus currently set up on this camera? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm currently shooting, as far as my focus area, I'm shooting in wide, and I have the face auto detection turned on. In my opinion, this is the easiest and best way to vlog on this camera. And when you're shooting at 16mm wide, especially in 4K, you can actually like crop in if you need to, or you can stay wide. And You won't lose any resolution as long as your project's in 1080, obviously. But yeah, that's why I like this 4K and vlogging in 4K, especially on 16, because you just get more options. Options. Okay, I'm having too much fun. Actually, I'll probably hate myself later when I have to edit this, because I'm gonna have to play around with all these options. All right, let's move on to the next one. Now, another one of my favorite things about 16 to 35 is the fact that you can actually go ahead and zoom it into 35 and have a very cinematic focal range or focal length. So like if I zoom this into 35 and shoot some stuff in slow motion, it's gonna look good. Like, actually, you know what? Let me actually show y'all this area, because if you're ever in the Houston area and you're looking for a dope place to shoot, you gotta come check out this wall. I mean, it's got colors, it's awesome, it's very well painted. In fact, let me stop talking about it. Let's roll it. Okay, it's too cold out here for me. I'm gonna have to, I gotta go back to the office. I can't do this. Whew. Okay, so much better now. It's way too chilly out there for me. I'm kind of nice that it's a little bit warmer in here, but back to what I was saying about this lens. This lens, in my opinion, is a phenomenal lens. Now, the GMaster lens are not cheap, and that's one thing that's kind of new for me. I mean, granted, I know that the Canon L series lenses are not cheap either, but there are a lot of options out there. You can get some used or different versions, so you have a little bit of flexibility on their high-end lenses. But when it comes to the GMaster lenses, these lenses are fairly expensive. And so when it comes to investing my money in my first GMaster lens, I wanted to make sure that the 16 to 35 was going to be worth it. You know, after looking at all the footage I've gotten with it so far, after looking at some of the vlogging footage and seeing just how much I can actually do with this lens and how actually sharp this lens is from edge to edge, I'm actually really surprised with this lens. I personally think that it will make a great addition to my kit, and thanks to the guys over at the Prime Camera Store for allowing me to take this lens out, test it out over the last couple days, so that way I can know if it's worth it. I mean, they have been doing a phenomenal job helping me with this transition as I start shooting on Sony, allowing me to test out some gear and being able to see what gear is best for me, which is something that I always recommend to you guys. If you are not sure about a piece of gear or you're thinking about getting something, definitely rent it first, so that way you can make sure that it is gonna work well for your workflow and how you shoot. And personally, I think the 16 to 35 is gonna be that perfect lens for me. So there you have it, guys. I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have been on the fence as far as is this a good lens or not to buy, and is it worth the price, I personally do think it is. Now, granted, I know they make the 16 to 35 f4 as I mentioned before, but I personally just love the 2.8, the shallow depth of field, and that extra light let in by this lens. So that's the reason why I'm going with this over that. But if you guys have another suggestion out there, another great wide angle lens that I should definitely consider, I'd love to hear that down in the comments as well. And again, if you haven't already, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, because trust me, you're not going to want to miss any other videos that we have coming out on this channel. We're posting practically daily at this point, and that's because the creative fam has been so strong. And so I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.